Could you imagine not doing an oil change on your brand new Camry for 20,000 miles? That's right. If you look at our recent video about the Toyota service scam exposed, you'll find that we really questioned whether any of that work was done. The worst part is, in Canada, they say you can go as long as 10,000 miles per oil change if you use synthetic and you're not driving in extreme conditions. I'm going to change that because after that service scam, you guys have motivated us. I'm a do-it-yourselfer, and I believe I want to get the right job done, keep my car lasting as long as possible. And since I have the basic tools and skills, I want to show you what I use to keep this vehicle running as long as physically possible. Let's go. But first of all, our last service experience at one of our local dealerships revealed that they didn't do a bunch of the work that they said they did. You paid the money, you got the car, they said it was done, you even got the paperwork after. It took some time to get it, but you realize later that they didn't rotate the tires, they didn't even check the brake wear, and we wondered whether they changed any of the filters or more specifically even changed the oil at the requested service interval. Now, from our experience driving this brand new 2022 Camry we bought new, we love this car. It's great, it's reliable. We drove it to California and back through the Sierra Nevada. It's reliable and it's absolutely bulletproof. But in my experience with a lot of the services, leaves us unfortunately questioning how much actual servicing are we getting done. I've had experiences as well with other vehicles whether you wonder if not just the work wasn't done, how well it was done. Did they over torque something? Did they break something and just leave it? There's always that nagging question in the back of your mind. Now you hope that they're being professionals, and most of the time you're getting good quality work. You show up, you drop your car off, you get what you actually paid for. But that doesn't always seem to happen. Now the car is basically off of warranty this year, and on top of it, there's no service plan. So now the main reason why we were electing to take the vehicle back to the dealership every single service was because we had a warranty covered. But without the warranty now we're in a position where I'm going to basically take a lot of these repairs myself. I'm going to tackle maintenance, repairs, and I'm going to show you some basic tools that you could possibly get into as well. Because realizing that unfortunately, Toyota now in Canada, we're seeing are as low as many as 10,000 miles before you even change the engine oil. That's not a great place to be, in my own personal opinion. They're saying if you use synthetic oil and you don't drive the car very hard, they're saying Toyota is okay with you going as much as 10,000 miles or as little as 5,000 miles in the harshest of conditions. But according to what we've seen on the service tender that shows up on the dashboard, usually it props up once a year or about 16,000 kilometers, or which is 10,000 miles. So we know that's not enough. That's not enough frequency on the oil services. And also, because of our experience at the local dealership, it leaves us wondering, why don't we just fix our own car? Now, I know there's a few difficult repairs on these vehicles. I've researched it, I understand. Sometimes with the V6 Camry, you can have a lot of problems getting access to the back oxygen sensor because the engine sits sideways, the back 3 spark plugs. I know on some of these cars, the water pump is a very difficult repair in some of these because the electric water pump in this 2.5 liter 4-cylinder can be a bit of a pain. So you can have troubles with some of the water pumps, as well as, so generally, you know, the serpentine belt on the V6 can be a real troublesome kind of an area. But for the most part, most of this maintenance is pretty easy to get at. You can do your coolant flushes, you can do your brake flushes, it's all accessible. Battery's easy to get at. And don't forget to disconnect your battery when you're ever doing major maintenance. But you know, alternator change is pretty easy to get at. You know, idler pulley is easy to get at. You want to recharge your AC, that's very easy to do. Air filters are easy to do. Almost everything under the hood is very easily accessed with a lot of these Camrys. And this 2.5 liter 4-cylinder is a very easy vehicle to change out parts on. You want to do spark plugs, easy to get at. But don't forget, this engine is susceptible to skipping oil services, and it will start to lead to oil consumption. So you want to make sure you're doing very frequent oil changes on this engine. So I'm not a mechanical engineer, and to dictate the exact mileage you need to do your oil services, who am I? But I do know rule of thumb, and I know best case and best practices. And after talking to many mechanics and owning many vehicles in my time, I've yet to have to change out and rebuild an engine because of wear and tear due to neglect and poor oil services. So I know firsthand doing oil changes is one of your most important aspects you want to maintain your vehicle. But let's just say that if you happen to get a skipped oil change at the dealership, that's bad, because it's bad enough that 10,000 miles is the expected oil change interval if you drive it in a mild condition. But I've always used the adage, oil is cheap engines are not. So I want to start with some of the basic tools I use that I'm going to be using, and you should maybe consider doing it too. If you're thinking about saving yourself some money, or more importantly, you don't trust the dealerships or you don't trust the shops you're taking your vehicle to, you can either do one of two things: pull codes with their check engine lights, do it yourself to validate, or even more importantly, just change some of the filters and do some of the maintenance yourself. It's a peace of mind. It's also a way to go in there and fix some of the little issues, as well as just clean the vehicle up as you go. That's always been my practice. I love doing my own services, and that's one of the key reasons I'm able to keep a lot of the vehicles in the fleet, just like not just the Camry, but the Porsche or even the Mercedes, but also BMW and the new toy in the fleet as well. And as I've gone down the journey of maintaining a lot of my own vehicles, and I'm going to now with my own Camry because I'm not sure I can totally trust with what I'm getting at the dealership, I'm going to start doing my own inspections. I'm going to do my own maintenance. And the start of that, of course, is having your own OBD2 port reader, code reader like this. Now, this is a cheaper unit. You don't have to spend thousands of dollars. You can get cheap, you know, $20, $30, $50, $100 code readers. And as you move up the rank and you spend a little more money, you usually get more features. But a lot of these features like this, all you got to do is plug in under the dashboard, and it gives you the availability to possibly read your own codes. If you ever have any check engine lights on the dash, you see that little yellow light, then you're going to want to use a tool like this, a little scan tool, OBD2 port reader, and you can see it has this traditional looking design, and you basically plug it underneath. Most of them are located right under the footwell here of most vehicles, and they're located down under here. You plug that in, and then it spits out your code and tells you exactly what you're dealing with, what kind of problems. Once it spits out the code, then you at least have an idea. Maybe you don't know how to diagnose it yourself. It might need further inspection, but from my personal experiences, I'll take the code that comes out of the code reader, I'll go Google that, P2051, and I'll say 2022 Toyota Camry, and you'd be surprised what it spits out. And it'll say the common failures, the common modes, and it'll usually tell you, yeah, it's usually this sensor or that sensor. And 9 times out of 10, you go and replace that part and you're usually set to go. Now, quite often you'll also find that using those code readers is a way to identify, you might have a simple check engine light, and a lot of times the codes are as simple as something like you forgot to put the gas cap on your gas. So just by opening your gas cap, check this and make sure that it's on tight, because sometimes you just might have fueled up and all of a sudden you got a check engine light. It could have been as simple as you didn't put the gas cap on properly, and that of course changes the pressure in the system and can spit out a code on the dash. And then of course validating your check engine light with your code reader underneath the dash may have been all it takes to verify that, oh yeah, that was just a gas cap that wasn't plugged on properly. And a code reader like this is handy because these vehicles, these modern day vehicles, including Toyotas, have sensors upon sensors upon sensors. Vehicles, of course, you know, oxygen sensors down there, that's a bit of a pain to get at sometimes, but those are very common failures. And this often is the tool you need to understand if that is your failure and how can I proceed about replacing that part. I mean, there's all kinds of sensors and equipment under the dash in modern day vehicles and under the hood. And so using a basic OBD code reader like this is all you need to understand, first of all, what's going on and what has just failed in your vehicle. And Toyota is like every other brand. It uses lots of sensors. That being said, it's a little simpler system than a lot of the modern day European brands, but parts still do fail. And a code like this, a code reader, OBD2 code reader, is what it's going to take to help you down your path of maintaining your new Toyota. And that's why I want to start using these tools more often to try to reduce the numbers of trips to the dealer. Now, there's other tools you're going to need as well. As soon as you start doing your own maintenance, for example, you can drain your engine oil, of course, naturally the old-fashioned way, through the bottom of the vehicle. You go underneath, you usually undo that bolt, and of course, drain it to a pan. While you're doing that, you pull your oil filter, so it reduces the amount of vacuum and allows all of the oil to drop. If you don't do your filter first and you plug everything up and put the bolt back in the bottom, you don't actually get all the oil gone. So make sure you pull the oil filter or open it up while you're draining your engine oil. And of course, naturally, that's your fill point. Here's your check point. But I do another way. Of course, you can do it right through the top, through these holes, which is your oil dipstick check. Your dipstick right here has this tube, and you can insert another tube in there, because sometimes for quicker oil changes, I'll use this pump. That means you can pump, of course, you either use compressed air or you just pump it like this, and you can pump the oil right out from the top of the engine, and then of course just change your filter. It saves you maybe draining it out the bottom, and it's clean, just puts it right in this tank. So I quite often use parts like this. I also make sure I have a good set of sockets and ratchets of different sizes and shapes. You got to make sure you have equipment like this. A good set of jacks. I use a nice heavy duty floor trolley jack, a couple different versions, and always use these jack stands. If you're under a vehicle or you're lifting it up, you want to make sure you double down and make sure you have jack stands as well as a jack holding the vehicle up. Never go underneath a vehicle that's not properly supported. And another thing I have to add is a lot of people get intimidated. They don't want to work on their own cars. They get scared. They might think, hey, I can't work on that. That's too complicated. Well, remember this one point. A lot of people that often end up working on your car, especially when you're dealing with some of the basic services, oil changes and filters, quite often a lot of these dealerships, they'll get that first year apprentice, that starter, that person that's just almost a labored person in the shop. It's rarely a journeyman that's actually working on your car, unless it's more serious diagnostics or troubleshooting a major problem. Usually the journeymen are reserved to bigger, more complex problems, and it's usually the apprentices that are doing this simpler work. And I'm not saying go rebuild an engine. What I am saying is don't be scared to work on your own car. It's your vehicle. This way it gives you the opportunity to understand what's going on there, learn a little bit more about your vehicle, and have the peace of mind that what you say you're doing actually gets done. Do the research, understand that you know all the products that you need. You know, here it says 0W16 oil. Of course, make sure you get your proper oil filters. If you need a new battery, just research that. Filters, you can find these everywhere, from jobbers to even the parts store in that respective dealership. But every part here is available, and most of these parts are quite easy to change. A little bit of time on the driveway, a few basic hand tools, and you're able to do a lot of this work yourself. That way, now I have the confidence to know that when I say I've got an oil change that was done at 20,000 kilometers, that it was actually done. So for maintenance on the Toyota Camry, I would strongly recommend oil services between 3,000 to 5,000 miles or 5,000 to 8,000 kilometers at the very most. You know, do brake fluid flushes every couple of years, as well as coolant flushes every couple of years, or as per the manufacturers. Definitely exceed those. You can check the pH on the coolant levels as well to make sure that it's not getting too acidic to start corroding. But ultimately, check your fluids, change your filters, and do it all even more prematurely than possibly even the recommended as per the manual. Fluids, filters are cheap. Maintenance, engines, and transmissions are not. What I find is as modern vehicles get a little more complicated, and that they are, it's becoming harder and harder to do your own work. I mean, a lot of these vehicles now, you have to get the dealer to fix it. You have to get the dealer to look at it. But the way I see this, even if you can do, say, 20%, 30% of the work on your own vehicle, A, it's money saved, but B, it's also peace of mind. And I think that goes even further, is the peace of mind knowing that the work was done properly. That's not to say you know or I know more than a journeyman mechanic. Absolutely not. They go to school, they get training, in-depth training for that. But they focus on more complex tasks. And the single things that you can learn, doing a basic brake job, brake flushes, maybe even a coolant flush. Most importantly, do your engine oil changes. Those are all relatively simple tasks that have lots of documentation. YouTube is a great place, and it's a great opportunity to learn how to work on your car in your own way. Now, of course, as cars get more refined, more technical, hybrid technology, electric vehicles, they not only become more technical, but in some cases more dangerous with the high voltages that you can't isolate the power sources. So some vehicles will get to a point where we can't do that much work on them ourselves. But a vehicle like a great little Toyota Camry or a Corolla, something that still has some of the more old school conventional design build to it, it's an easy vehicle to work on. And quite frankly, I like working on my own cars. It's a cost savings, but it's also an opportunity to really make sure that I get in there, I clean things, I wipe it down, and I just make sure that it's done properly. Anyway, just make sure that everything you do is well researched, it's done safely, always use jack stands, always bleed pressures, always do the things to make sure that you protect yourself. Is the first thing you want to always do, is protect yourself first and the vehicle second. And then, of course, just be well researched, understand the ins and the outs, the best products. There's always a discussion about the better oils or the better tools or the better sensors. My experience has been things like O2 sensors, better to get OEM. Sensors are always better to get right from the dealer, because some of these honestly, some of these sensors you're buying now, third party, that you get on Amazon, aren't really that great. Sometimes they just fail in short order. But a lot of other parts quite often are easy to get access to, and quite honestly, buying aftermarket sometimes makes sense. So ultimately, you've got to shop around, do your research, but honestly, that's part of the fun. Fix your own car, maintain it. And for the fact is that we've lost a lot of faith in our dealership. And I know there's other dealers. There's many other dealers of the same brand. And I could try another one and another one. But you never really know who's working on your car. See, that's the problem. They have this big fancy shiny sign at the front of the dealership. But who's actually working on your car? Is it Joe, Bill, June, Vern? Like, who knows? I don't know. Do you know the mechanic working on your car? Today it might be John. Next week at the same dealership, it could be Mac. Who knows? But the point is, all I'm trying to say is you don't really know who's working on your car, and we pay them good money for this. You want to make sure that you're getting a good job done. Most cases we are. I truly believe, from my experience, most dealership experiences are positive. And most dealers want to do the right thing. They just want to give you the service you pay for, and they want to gain and maintain that reputation. They want the business. They want the service. They want you to come back time and time again. But unfortunately, there's always cost cutting. There's, when you're dealing with the programs and how a lot of these dealerships operate now on piecework, and how a lot of the shops pay their workers by the book, that's all they need is a rusty bolt or a broken part. And now it puts them back 2 hours. Now they're trying to make up time because they couldn't make it on the front end because they had to get that rusty fitting off. See, that's how it works. When they get a fixed amount of book time, a lot of mechanics just try to get it through it as fast as they can. On to the next job, on to the next job. Because they're not paid, in most cases, by the hour. Quite often they're paid by the job or by the book. And in which case, the faster in, the faster out, the more they get paid. You've got to understand that premise. So if you're working on it yourself, you take the time to make sure you're doing it right. Again, as always, be sure to hit that subscribe button. Don't forget those 2 videos I promised you. Those experiences I promised you earlier in the video. You're going to want to check out those if you want to follow up more on the baseline, the history of what I went through. Hope you all have a wonderful day. See you then. Bye-bye.